Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're stepping into something brutally honest, something every man feels at some point, but most suffer in silence. What do you do when she starts ignoring you? When the woman who once laughed at your jokes, replied in seconds, and shared her world with you, suddenly goes cold? You text, no reply. You call, no answer. She's online. But for everyone else, not you. Let's be real. That moment, it crushes you inside. Not because you're weak, but because you showed up real in a world addicted to validation and games. As the great philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But today, we flip the script. Not with manipulation, not with fake indifference, but with emotional intelligence so powerful it makes her question everything. As the philosopher Alain de Boston once said, one of the greatest acts of self-respect is to walk away from what doesn't see your value. When a woman ignores you, it's not always personal. Sometimes it's a test, sometimes it's ego, sometimes it's her own confusion. But your reaction? That's where your real strength lies. She often expects him to chase, beg, overgive, but the moment you stop reacting, her ego begins to starve. As Nietzsche once said, "He who has a way to live can bear almost anyhow." Let your why be your self-worth, not her attention. This video isn't about breaking her heart. It's about breaking her illusion that she could treat you like an option, and you'd still be waiting. In the age of Instagram validation and TikTok distractions, women are used to being chased. But when you give her silence, calm, focused, evolved silence, it's the one thing she can't handle, because it's not rejection, it's reflection. So today, we're going to explore 6 powerful shifts you can make. Not just to protect your heart, but to level up your presence, power, and peace. This is not revenge, this is rebalanced. So, take a deep breath. Let's step into your strength, and remember, sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. Let's go start. Number 1, withdraw to regain your power, not to punish. Her silence is not a weapon. It's a sanctuary. And the man who understands this doesn't disappear in bitterness. He steps back in clarity. When a woman begins to ignore you, whether intentionally, emotionally, or unconsciously, most men make the same mistake. They panic. They text more, call more, explain themselves, try to fix something that may not even be broken, just neglected. But what they don't realize is that every moment you chase her silence, you shrink in her perception. The truth is brutal, but it's real. Neediness is repellent, not because love shouldn't be expressive, but because desperation erodes respect. Instead, the high-value man, the man who knows his worth, chooses a different response. He withdraws, not to punish, not to provoke, but to preserve. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." And that's exactly what withdrawal offers: clarity, a moment to reconnect with yourself without the fog of external confusion. This silence is not passive-aggressive, it's intentional. It says, "I refuse to beg for what should be freely given." It says, "I choose peace over performance." It says, "I am not afraid to lose someone who doesn't see my value." When you step back, 2 things happen, and both are powerful. First, you begin to heal. You stop bleeding emotionally into someone who isn't offering a bandage. You reconnect with your strength, your routine, your growth. You remember that your worth isn't measured by her attention, but by your alignment with your higher self. Second, your absence speaks volumes. She feels the silence. She notices the shift. not because you're playing games, but because she was used to your steady presence, the check-ins, the warmth, the support, and suddenly that emotional cushion is gone. Now her reflection isn't softened by your love. Now she must face the reality of how she treated someone who only wanted to show up. This is where regret begins to grow. Because when you withdraw without anger, without blame, just stillness and dignity, it forces her to ask the questions she never asked before. Why did he stop trying? Did I push him away? Was he more valuable than I realized? And the man who withdraws with purpose isn't bitter. He's better focused, better grounded, better aligned with what he truly deserves. So remember, withdrawing isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not running away from her. You're returning to yourself. You're stepping out of confusion into clarity. And that clarity, that's your power. That's your healing. That's your next level. Let her sit with the silence. Let her feel what life sounds like without your voice in it. Because a woman can ignore a message, but she can't ignore a man who's no longer available to be taken for granted. Number 2, stop explaining yourself to someone who's not listening. One of the most painful things a good man can do is over-explain himself to someone who's already decided not to hear him. When a woman starts ignoring you, the silence creates a void, and naturally, you try to fill it with words. You want to clarify, reconnect, fix the distance before it grows. But here's the harsh truth. Explaining yourself to someone who is emotionally unavailable is like whispering into a hurricane. The louder your love tries to be heard, the more invisible it becomes. She's not missing your words. She's ignoring your presence. And that stings. But this is the moment where you reclaim your value. You stop sending paragraphs to someone who won't read your energy. You stop justifying your kindness, your consistency, your love. Why? Because real love doesn't need a pitch. It doesn't beg for recognition. A man with self-respect doesn't argue to prove his worth. He simply walks in it. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Let your silence be your boundary. Let your peace be the loudest response." If she truly cared, she wouldn't need a breakdown of what you're feeling. She'd sense it, respond to it, and hold space for it. But if she doesn't, then you have to stop giving her your heart's GPS. Let her wonder where you went. Let her notice the absence of your attention. Because the moment you stop explaining is the moment you stop chasing and start elevating. You don't owe anyone a speech for being loyal, loving, or emotionally available. The right woman will never need a monologue to respect your presence. So, speak less, mean more. And if she's too distracted to hear your voice, then let your silence become the echo that haunts her ego. Number 3, upgrade your life quietly. Let growth be the response. When she begins to ignore you, most men turn their energy toward winning her back. But the man who understands his worth does something different. He turns inward. He stops trying to be seen and starts seeing himself more clearly. He doesn't seek revenge. He seeks evolution, not for her to notice, but for him to rise. Because here's the secret. The best response to being overlooked is to outgrow the space where you were diminished. A good man doesn't post his progress online just to make her jealous. He makes real progress offline to make peace with himself. He improves his mind, his body, his finances, his circle, his energy. Why? Because while she's out seeking validation in temporary places, he's building a permanent foundation. A life that doesn't beg for love, it attracts it. As the Stoic Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." When she sees you rising, not to prove a point, but because you finally started choosing yourself, that's when the silence gets loud for her. Not because you said something clever, but because you became someone she no longer has access to. That's the moment the ego trembles. Understand this. Your glow-up shouldn't be about her. It should be about finally living the way you always wanted to, without waiting for her approval. You become more focused, more grounded, more unbothered. Your life stops orbiting her attention and starts expanding around your own vision. So upgrade, not in loud declarations, but in quiet discipline. Upgrade until the old version of you no longer fits into conversations about what went wrong. You don't chase, you evolve, because true power is never about proving anything. It's about becoming someone they can't reach from where they left you. Number 4, detach without bitterness. Let her feel the shift, not the shout. There's a quiet kind of power in detaching, not out of spite, not with anger, but with clarity. When a woman begins to ignore you, most men respond with either desperate pursuit or cold revenge. But a good man, one rooted in emotional maturity, knows the third path: detachment without bitterness. That's where real strength lives. Detachment isn't apathy. It's not saying, "I don't care." It's saying, "I care, but not at the expense of myself anymore." It's the silent decision to stop pouring love into a cup that has no intention of holding it. And that shift, it speaks louder than any dramatic exit ever could. It's the subtle change in your energy that she feels. Even if she never admits it, you stop double texting. You stop explaining what your silence means. You stop waiting for a reply to feel whole. She starts to feel the weight of your absence, not because you made a scene, but because you no longer make her the center of yours. In today's social media age, everyone is performing. But the moment you stop performing for her validation, the game collapses. She'll check your stories, wonder why your tone changed, reread your last message, not because you're trying to get her attention, but because your peace replaced your pursuit. As Lao Tzu once said, "By letting it go, it all gets done." The world is won by those who let it go. When you detach, you reclaim your time, your energy, your self-worth. You begin to recenter your emotional world around the only thing that truly matters, your own inner peace. That doesn't mean you stop loving, but it means you stop begging to be loved back. You become a mystery again, not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. You shift from needing her response to appreciating your own restraint. And trust this, a man who can detach without resentment is more dangerous than one who yells or walks away in anger. Why? Because he's not ruled by emotion. He's moved by value. When you reach that point, when you can sit in silence, not as punishment, but as protection, she'll feel it in ways that no argument or confession ever could. That's not toxicity, that's maturity, because sometimes the most attractive thing a man can do is nothing. No chase, no explanation, just a calm exit from the chaos and a quiet return to his own gravity. So detach, not to teach her a lesson, but to finally learn your own. Number 5, make her earn back the access she took for granted. A mistake many good men make is this: once a woman ignores them, distances herself, or takes their presence for granted, they leave the door wide open, just in case she decides to return. But here's the truth no one wants to say. When someone shows you that your consistency is invisible, your energy must become exclusive. Love isn't about being constantly available. It's about being mutually valued. If she once had your full attention and chose to treat it like background noise, then the moment she realizes what she's lost, your comeback shouldn't be instant. It should be intentional. Not to punish, but to protect your standard. You see, access to a good man is a privilege, not a birthright. And when that access is misused, it must be earned again, not with apologies, but with actions. You don't just let her walk back in with a "Hey stranger" and a smile. You observe, you assess. You ask yourself, has she changed? Or is this just loneliness dressed up as interest? And if you're still the only one doing the emotional labor, giving, fixing, leading, then you already have your answer. As Dr. Thelma Bryant once said, "Your healing will disturb people who benefited from your brokenness. So make peace with the discomfort of having standards. It's not bitterness, it's boundaries. A healed man doesn't close his heart. He guards it wisely. He's open, but not to everyone. He's kind, but not naive. And when she finally sees the value of what she once ignored, she'll feel the difference. Not because you're trying to make her feel bad, but because you finally feel good without needing her approval. That shift is powerful when you no longer seek to convince her, impress her, or win her back, and instead stand firm in your new energy. That's when you stop being an option and start becoming the one she can't reach with old behavior. In today's world, people chase dopamine, not depth. So, when you offer real connection and she chooses distraction, you must stop being her backup plan. Let her feel the consequence of losing a man who was solid in a world full of surface-level attention. And if she wants you back, make her earn the version of you that she once took for granted. Because a man who gives easy access after disrespect isn't loving, he's leaking. And healing means sealing that leak with strength, clarity, and self-worth. Number 6, elevate yourself. So much that she no longer recognizes the man she took for granted. The most powerful response to being ignored is not revenge, nor is it emotional begging. It is evolution. When a woman begins to fade, to pull away, to act like your presence is optional, you don't chase, you transform, not to prove her wrong, but to prove to yourself just how much light lives within you when you stop dimming it for someone else. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the man you were before her validation became your oxygen. Start working on your body, not to get her attention, but to respect the vessel that holds your pain and your power. Start sharpening your mind. Read more, reflect more, challenge your old beliefs. Step into spaces that require your growth, not your wounds. When she checks in on you, and trust me, she will, she should not find the man she left behind. She should find a man so elevated, so grounded, so internally fulfilled that she can't recognize the version of you who once waited for her reply. This isn't about arrogance. This is about alignment. A healed man doesn't broadcast his glow. He just shines quietly, confidently, consistently. And in that energy, she'll feel something shift. Maybe she'll regret. Maybe she won't. But that's no longer your concern. Because the truth is, when a woman ignores a good man, she assumes he'll always be there, until he becomes someone she can no longer reach with the same access, same games, same energy. She loses not the boy who needed her attention, but the man who outgrew her absence. Remember the words of Carl Jung, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." So, choose to become unavailable to what used to break you. Choose to level up so fiercely that silence is no longer a response. It's your new standard. When she sees you focused, unbothered, expanding your world without her, that's when the illusion breaks. She begins to understand that the real loss wasn't your attention, it was your potential. And by the time she realizes what she let go, you're not waiting, you're walking. Not away in anger, but forward in freedom. You don't return to the version of yourself she ignored. You rise into the version she never deserved. Conclusion. So, what do you do when she ignores you? You stop making her silence your suffering. You stop chasing validation from someone who has already shown you that your value is invisible in her eyes. And most importantly, you stop waiting. Because here's the truth. When you reclaim your energy, your time, and your presence, you shift the entire dynamic. You become the man who doesn't beg to be seen. You become the man who shines so brightly it's impossible to ignore. This isn't about destroying her ego with revenge or games. It's about destroying the version of yourself that believed her attention defined your worth. And that's where real power lives. As you elevate, evolve, and embody self-respect, she may return. But by then you'll realize the version of you who waited for her reply no longer exists. She'll feel the shift, not through words, but through your silence, not through punishment, but through your peace. So if this message hit something real in you, if you've ever sat in silence, overthinking a message she never replied to, or if you've ever loved deeply and felt discarded quietly, know this: you are not alone. You are not weak. You are becoming. Now, if you found value here, if this gave you clarity, strength, or even just a moment of reflection, do me a favor, like this video to support the message. Share it with a brother who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel, because we're not just talking emotions here. We're building a movement of men who rise through awareness, not anger. Until next time, stand tall, stay silent, evolve loudly,